and introducing now Chiara, who is a visiting researcher with us at Dartington from Italy. So over to you, Chiara.
Thank you, Tracy. Good afternoon, everybody. Ciao. I will just share my screen directly. So we can start. Okay. It's just loading. It's taking a moment, I think. Okay, it's just the first slide. Okay. So just the first, okay, here we have it. Okay, so thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this symposium. And also, I think it's really, I really like to come after the last talk because it's, we will see how. Like, I think it's, we have a really different character. Like my presentation has a very different character, but I think somehow we are really connected. So I'm really glad it happened that we were one after the other one. So can you properly see? I think so, right? Perfect. So my talk today is called about agroecology, new ruralities, and imagination. And so we are going to dive into the Western Italian Alps. But I wanted to start with this picture, and I just put it like a second slide after listening to the last talk, because I think it's a thread, it's seeds, it's beans, and I think we will see at the end of this talk why I put them here. They are really like a little bit protagonists, maybe. So I'm a researcher, and I'm here as a researcher. I'm a PhD student at the University of Gastronomic Sciences of Pollenzo. I don't know if you know it, but it's a university that was founded by the slow food movement, and it's in the north of Italy. And we explore gastronomy like from very different perspectives. So from like food chain to agronomy to food perception to philosophy, anthropology. It's an interdisciplinary institution. And but also, I'm also a musician. I play the harp and I play other instruments. And I'm also a storyteller. Like I discovered storytelling in the Netherlands while I was studying ecology. And I brought this tool and this magic with me through my path. So this just to give you a little bit an overview of who I am. So let's dive into where I come from. So these are the Alps, and basically we are gonna go visiting the Western Italian Alps that are here on left side. Basically, the Alps are like a really interesting place, especially if we speak about biocultural diversity. So it's really a place that can be defined as a biocultural refuge, a biocultural hotspot where like really traditions, languages, agriculture practices were really intertwined with the local biodiversity and somehow like also preserved in a way. But this area is also really tricky because in the last 150 years, we had the really severe abandonment of places, of villages, and therefore of stewardship memory. So of the pool of practices and knowledge of how like the local communities were living and participating in the local environments and co-producing, so producing food in the local environments. This is a picture from an abandoned village. Now it's completely inside the forest in the Western Italian Alps. This happened basically because of poverty, because of the two wars, and then because of industrialization or urbanization. Lots of people just moved away from the mountains to go to work in Turin and other big cities for like in the industries, and also for mass tourism. So basically the mountains became a little bit just like a second home place, but not like place for communities. This is a book, a very interesting book in Italian. I think there should be also like a translation in English. It's called like the World of the Losers. And it has been written in the 70s, where these anthropologists, let's say, like it just walked in the mountains, not only in the mountains, but also in the mountains of my region, just interviewing the people. And in the 70s, 80s, it was really the moment of abandonment. Like it was really, and in his interview, that there's continuously this story of people saying, yes, we used to grow lentils and fields of rye and barley here, and now there's anything less left. Basically, only livestock farming survived, but most of the practices related to agriculture were lost. So abandonment brings oblivion and like carries like really like a detachment from the place, and but it also represents a possibility, like an occasion, because the gaps and the windows that abandonment creates actually creates a space to maybe return and recreate and reimagine a presence in these areas. And so my research comes really within these windows, because in the last 20 years, let's say, even if urbanization, it is still, and it has been like the most predominant phenomenon, in this area, we're really seeing a return of people that starts like they decide actively to go back to live in these areas in the mountains, and many different scholars and not scholars are addressing this return to live in the mountains, and really trying to understand why these people are choosing to live in an inner marginal area. And my research comes within this panorama, like landscape, trying to understand, are these people actually starting to engage again with the mountainous landscape? Are they starting farming again? And if yes, how? So yeah, basically this is what I've been done the last 3 years. So really understanding the new emerging trajectories of agriculture and food practices in some valleys of the Western Italian Alps. And basically I had 3 main questions, or 2, let's say. One is like, who is there? Who is practicing agriculture, and why and how? And are there practices more or less agroecological? So yeah, and also trying to understand where the knowledge and practices come from. And then the second question was like, which occasions and tools foster the sharing and co-creation of knowledge among these new actors and local actors? And yeah, so to really understand how they exchange and they rebuild the pool of practices and knowledge to actually steward these areas. So I've been interviewing many people in 7 valleys, and I've done also participant observation. Like I've participated to many events, and I spent days in the fields with people. And basically, the first thing that came out from my study is that 62% of the people I interviewed that are practicing agriculture were new highlanders, so new people coming to live in the mountains. And 12% were like returning mountaineers, so people that were born in the mountains, moved away for studying or working or something like that, then decided to start, like to come back to live in the mountains and start farming. And then 25% was native people. But even the new Highlanders, the native, like all of them, most of them were anyway new rural, so people new to agriculture, because agricultural practices were, as I mentioned before, basically lost except for livestock farming. Also really interesting, we could see like a high percentage of female farmers and also really young people. And also it's a really recent phenomenon, because 72% of the farmers actually started their activity less than 10 years ago. So really, really recent coming back of people to the land. And I really tried to understand, okay, what kind of agriculture are they practicing, and are there certain people more prone to adopt more agroecological practices? What I could really observe through my interviews is that we really can see new trajectories of systems of co-production. Co-production is like a concept that was like really theorized by Van der Ploeg, that wrote about new rurals, like new peasants, and this really important book. And so the system of co-production is this continuous ongoing interaction of mutual transformation between like the local communities, the local farmers, and the environment. And I could really see new trajectories in these areas. Yeah, this is just to show you that basically while I was interviewing the people, I was trying to go through the whole food chain, through let's say to the whole food production chain. So from seeds to selling. So we were really speaking about soil, seeds, the practices related to rotation, which crops were there, the water systems. Like we really spoke about many things. And then I read all the practices through the lens of the 13 principles of agroecology, that are the ones you can see here. So at the core, there is the co-creation of knowledge, but then there are all these other principles. And so speaking about these new trajectories of co-production, I could really see, for example, that agrobiodiversity, it was really at the core of this new wave of agriculture. And this was suggested by the fact that 50% of the interviewed actors actually decided to become more sovereign, like to really own them. For example, seeds, like this decided to start again, like self-producing seeds, not buying them from somewhere else, really trying to rebuild this kind of really food sovereignty in the whole food production chain. They even, like there are many events organized to really start sharing seeds between the different farmers, and really trying to valorize the local varieties, as well as introducing completely new varieties. For example, this picture you can see here, this is corn, and you can see of many different colors. If you probably see this picture and without knowing that it's attached to a presentation of the Western Italian Alps, probably you would think of Mexico, of Guatemala, somewhere else. And this is because, for example, there are new farmers that are really coming from different contexts. This is a picture coming from a collective garden founded by a Mexican woman from Chiapas. And she brought seeds, milpa seeds, so squash, beans, and corn from Mexico, and she started farming them there, together with really local varieties of maize and tomatoes and whatever. And so there's really a big hybridization of knowledge, but really trying to build up a higher agrobiodiversity locally. And then also a new relationship, like trying to build a new relationship with soil. And this is really happening, like people starting to try no-till, or trying to start really, like basically all the people I interviewed, they don't use fertilizer, they really minimize their input in their production. And also there is an example in a valley of a new networks that is called Soil Keepers, like of really farmers coming together to sensibilize and build together knowledge about soil and soil health. And then also another trajectory is really in the relationship with the local biodiversity. And this comes through so many different paths. So from like the really like thinking how to build an agroecological system, they really work at ecosystem level. So really trying to recreate ecosystems that are also really welcoming for like natural, what is the name? Like natural, doesn't come to me the word, but you see like, so those animals that actually help to prevent the presence of pests because they actually predate on them. as well as also creating cultural projects or cultural situations in which people can come together, deepen the knowledge on biodiversity and local biodiversity, and actually try to discuss solutions together about how to relate with the local biodiversity. That it's really big topic in the mountains, because in the mountains we have deers, we have boars, we have wolves, and they all participate in the local environment, and they really also sometimes create conflicts with the agricultural actors. And then, so this is an example, this is a library that was founded, it's called the Library of the Wolf. So where people really come together and say, okay, we have the wolf here, and as well as the wolf, we have the deers, we have the boars. How do we live together in these mountains and we produce food peacefully? And it's a big topic because really there are many people really angry at wolves and really trying to eradicate them from the valleys. The core principle of agroecology is really co-creation of knowledge, and this was really also at the core of my research, and I could really see different occasions of co-creation of knowledge, and I will just bring some really brief examples. So this is the collective garden I was speaking to you before. The woman you can see there over there, she's Dulce, this Mexican woman now farming in the Alps. We have also community ovens that are, I will just go because I don't think I have like a lot of time, but like this is a whole other chapter. So like there are many ovens remained in the villages, really ancient ovens, and now these new rurals are starting to light again to produce bread. And actually this is triggering also like the starting of growing again grain crops in these valleys. And so these are really like a small hubs where people come together to actively make bread, but at the same time really sharing knowledge, sharing stories, and really building new knowledge and practices together. As well as more entrepreneurial also occasion, for example, the arising of community-supported agriculture initiatives that are really new in Italy. We have really few. And in these valleys we have, this is the first one, it's called Cresco, I Grow. And they feed 100 families just growing vegetables in the mountains. And growing vegetables in the mountains, it's challenging. So they are really big heroes. And really so trying to shorten the distance between producers and consumers. And this is also really important principle for agroecology. So basically, I could speak for other hours. So this was just I condensed a lot in just a little presentation. So basically what we can see in this area, there is really a return to agriculture affecting locals, like also like interesting locals, new mountaineers, returning mountaineers. And this is really creating the emerging of ecological approaches that actually hybridize local knowledge, traditional knowledge, what was left, with completely new knowledge, but together actually moving towards a more agroecological, let's say, system of producing in the valley. And this, of course, has a big impact on the biocultural diversity of these valleys that is being affected by this all fermentation of new approaches and with nature and co-production with nature. And this is, yes, same, the collective garden. This was a nice moment in which I showed them a movie I made of them during the Festa del Maíz, like the celebration of the harvest in September. I made a movie and then I showed them. And it was a really beautiful moment of, I think, really empowerment for them to really understand their role in the valley. And I think it was really valuable. And I come back to the jar of seeds. So basically, I've been a researcher, but then I actually built relationships, and I wanted to actually be in these valleys, not as a mere researcher milking information from the people, but I also wanted to have like to give back something. And for example, one of the ways in which I gave back, it's through seed exchange, because when I just started moving around the valleys, people were maybe texting me and say, hey, but I saw from Instagram that you were in that valley. I saw that you made pictures of this producer. I'm really interested in those seeds. Can you take me some seeds? And then I just started being also a little messenger of seeds through the valleys. And this is a jar of beans that I actually delivered from Cresco, so from the CSA of one valley to this Julia. She comes from Argentina, but now she's also in a valley growing food for herself. And so, yeah, this, I think it was a beautiful, it's a beautiful like representation of also an additional role I could have, and I was really honored to have in this process. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, and thank you for condensing so much into a rapid presentation. But I hope that it's a way of introducing what you're doing to some of the people here. How much longer are you at Dartington?
Really few days. Really few days. I will go away the 9th, but it was my first time here. I really hope I will come again, and I'm collaborating with Nathan. I hope I will have other reasons to come, to share more, to research more also this area. I can see a lot of ferment here as well, of like new rural. So I would love to know more about this as well. And of course, I can drop here my email again. So if anybody's interested, they can write me and we can have a chat.
Yeah, and I know that there is quite a lot of international networking of mountain culture research going on. And one place I was in residence in the Catalan Pyrenees Centre d'Art i Natura. If you don't know it, there was a lot of resonance for me in the things you were talking about. They'd be an interesting connection for you, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Matt, you had a question.
Yes, thank you, Chiara. That was really inspiring. And I live just about 2 hours west of Dartington in Falmouth, and my daughter works in a food co-op there. And I feel like there would be a whole bunch of people down there that would really like to come up if you were doing a public talk again up here. And because there was something about the sense of seeing some of those things are established around Falmouth, but I think much less so, in much less embodied ways. So there's something very inspiring about understanding this smaller local initiative to be part of a bigger paradigm that's happening, and you can see it happening in a more developed way. So yeah, really affirmative. Thanks.
Yeah, please write me. Like I will just drop my email now in the chat. So write me and say, hey, I'm there from the symposium, and we can. Yeah,
great. I hope one of the things coming out of this symposium will be, lots more connections, Dartington to Falmouth, but much wider, and more of an understanding of what people are doing and where you could have useful dialogue going forward. Any more?